Hi guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. We are doing our part 2 of our twin mirror analysis. Last time we left it, we did the crime scene at the bar and we escaped, and now we are looking for Dennis. So I'll get stuck straight in. We're in the downtown, bit of a slow section where we can go around talking to some people. Jack, tell us the first person you went up to and had some interaction with.
So I went up to Joan first, and to be honest, I didn't get too much out of it. All I basically said to her was that I haven't really found anything yet. And I noticed that with a lot of the characters in this section, you could either let them talk or you could interrupt them and ask about Dennis. In this particular instance, I actually just let her talk. I was thinking, her dad's dead, you can't really sort of be interrupting, but I think I then experimented later on with that Christina, the cafe woman.
Yeah.
I just straight up interrupted her, and then she got really pissy with me and then just went back to behind the counter. So it's almost as if I don't know if the game wanted you to listen to them at that particular point, but I'm sort of sat there thinking, I'm trying to solve this guy's murder here, and I'm trying to get information. It's sort of you're being really rude and stuff, and I'm leave it out. But honestly, it was a bit of a slow section. If I had to say, probably the weakest section I've played in the game so far, to be honest. No means is that me absolutely dogging on it, it's absolutely terrible, but it is pretty slow and dialogue heavy. What have I got written down here? Spoke to Declan, when he's apprehending that guy. All I really got out of him that he's resentful for the town because he tries to do good things, but it doesn't necessarily pay off. I remember speaking to Tara as well, asked about Dennis, and again she just waffled on for a bit. And I spoke to Hugh, and he said that he didn't really want to be an outsider in the community, because he is the newcomer, isn't he? He's moved into the town. And then there was an employee outside, and then there was a bit of a mind palace with Christina and the board games and stuff. But yeah, actually, you know what? Think about it. Potential plot strand. I don't know if this is going to be anything or whether it's just going to be trying to give them character depth thing. When I was talking to Christina, after I interrupted her initially, I was like, right, let's get in her good books. And she told me that her and Hugh are going into some sort of business venture together. And I don't know, I say, that could mean, that could come back later on. It could just be a bit of dialogue, but I thought I'd put a pin in it just in case, I know you've got your suspicions of Hugh, so maybe, that could be something that comes back later on, mate. But I don't know what your thoughts on this whole section were.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'll speak a little bit about the whole interrupt thing, because I think I listened to Declan at the start, but then I thought, you know what, now I want to be quite chaotic here. So the first person I could interrupt was Bug. So Joan was just going off on one, and I was I just interrupted her. She got really annoyed at me, but I found it funny. I was having a laugh with the guys and Casey on the stream, so I was like, yeah, this will be funny. Even Cade had a right laugh with me. It was how ungrateful is she? Her dad dies, I interrupt her, and she's rude to me. There's no excuse for it. I did it with Christina as well, and I think Christina's the one that matters the most, because if you look at your itinerary, it is marked in blue. So I feel maybe me and you interrupting her there, we've probably missed out on something, maybe. That's what I'm thinking, but either way, I'm glad I did it. It was funny. It was the guy in the glasses comes by, he's you have to endure it, and I was I will. And then a second later, I'm no, I can't do it. So I just straight away cut her off. But yeah, some interesting dialogue. I think, yeah, definitely the pharmacy is probably the most interesting point around here. You're especially bump into that random kid. I thought that was funny. But yeah, more interesting dialogue with Hugh, which I'll talk about later, and with Kathy. It looked like at one point she was sneaking drugs behind the counter, which I thought was quite odd. Could be something to chew on, maybe. But yeah, what else is there to mention? Yeah, you go to the cafe as well, and there's the employee smoking outside, and she's there for like, in my gameplay at least, she was there for at least half an hour just smoking while the poor lad inside is like slaving away wiping tables. I'm like, Christina, you need to get a hold of your workers because there is a really unfair dynamic going on here. But now, like, really interesting. You meet Joe as well, don't you, for the first time, which is Anna's dad, I believe, who obviously lost his legs to the miners. Quite a nice interaction. I, enjoyed this section. And quite a tedious section with an old man as well, which, I probably lost about a year's life, having to endure.
Oh, what, the guy that's like polishing the plaques?
Yeah, with his joke, yeah.
Oh, that's right, yeah. I know this is like clearly it's going to be the most important choice in the entire game, but I think it was like he wanted you to like deliver a punchline to a joke, and it was like, how many West Virginians does it take to change a light bulb? I think I picked 2 or something like that, and then he says, "Oh, my answer's 3," and I was like, "Yeah, but that wasn't on my choices. Just don't hold it against me. I couldn't pick 3, I don't think." But,
Yeah, that's it. Oh, it's hilarious. And just the way he rambled on. He's like, "Oh, do you want me to tell you a story?" I was like, "Go for it, but I will be going on my phone while you tell the story, because I cannot give a shit, mate." But regardless, though, as horrible and chaotic as I am, I guess it boils over to this cafe scene where Anna drops you a text saying to meet you in the cafe. So, like, it's nice to see her again, especially for my sake, because we didn't leave on the best of terms in the last episode where I made her storm out the cafe. But yeah, you have a little nice chat, It doesn't last long, because as soon as she sort of says, like, "Oh yeah, Dennis might be, working at the jungle, you should check," you basically storm out and just leave her there. But it does present us with our first choice, doesn't it? Where we can choose to confide in her. What did you pick, Jack?
Oh, I hid it from her.
Oh, I am so glad you did, because I basically was just sat there like, I want to do the opposite to what you do. And I confided in her. So yeah, very interesting. She basically, like, she's quite supportive, but she's like, "Yeah, that bloody shirt, like, that doesn't look good. What the hell?" And then you storm out, but then obviously the dialogue becomes more relevant later when we get to the jungle. But yeah, like, what happens when you hide it then?
I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure that he just like says something vague, or he just chooses not to reveal anything. Then she's like, "Oh, okay," and then he just leaves, and she has like a little bit of a hissy fit, the fact that you went. But to be honest, I mean, I'm gonna say this now because obviously we're still playing this game. But if they try to reintroduce a romantic angle in this between Sam and Anna, I'm not buying it. Like, I'm still sat there, and it is partly why I chose to hide it from. I was thinking, hang on a minute, she's, you know the things about crime. It's usually the domestic partner that's guilty, right?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, no, I'm not going to tell her because A, she could be involved. I mean, she's not really a suspect on my list, but she could be, right? And second of all, I hadn't been gone 5 minutes, and then she goes and gets in a relationship and sleeps with my best mate. So she's not going to suddenly become all pally with me. So I'm like, no, fuck you, bitch. Like, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. So that was partly my motivation behind it, but I've got to say that it does somewhat change later on, which we will get to, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, mine doesn't make any sense because it's like I fell out with her the night before. She comes back, texts me, and then I'm like, "Yeah, by the way, bloody shirt, funny story, right?" It just like makes no sense. I'm so back and forth with her. But I guess we go to this place, right? And before we get into this jungle to meet Dennis, we have an interaction with some miners. Not like I said in the other video, not the ones we find in Mr. Jefferson's basement, but some, miners you find underground. And this is the. I found this dialogue quite cheesy but funny. The way they come up to you, like, "Oh, intimidating, like, yeah, you should leave town," and then one of them's like, "Oh, there's a cop over there though," and they're like, "Oh, you got lucky," and then they kind of stroll away. It felt like a high school interaction, like, "You're lucky the teacher's in the room with us, or we would have caused some serious damage." I was just like, "Grow the fuck up."
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I turned around and said to him that I'll just leave soon. Like the guy was clearly in my way, even though that I went down there like 10 minutes before. I went to the actual door that you ultimately go through, and they weren't there. But like, yeah, I was just like, oh, just shut up, honestly. Like, I also found it a bit hilarious how like all of the side characters are conveniently in this like one strip of road
Yeah, yeah.
in the downtown. Like none of them are elsewhere at home, doing nothing. None of them are out shopping, any of this. They're all in this one little strip. But
Yeah, even Walter at one point, right? You meet as well. I forgot about that. I don't think the dialogue brings anything of relevance, but he is there at one point. And then we've got with the miners as well. I stirred the pot with them. I was like, I'll leave when I want to leave, and then they got proper irate. But I was like, yeah, I just wanted some chaos, But yeah, I guess so. We go into this place, right, and you're looking around, and honestly, it caught me off guard. I did not expect us to find a dead body. What was your reaction to that, Jack?
yeah, I honestly didn't expect it either. And it was one of those sort of moments because, like I said already, I did think that the previous bit was fairly weak. It was just wandering around talking to characters. But, like, as soon as this happened, I was like, sort of like rubbing my hands together. I was thinking, yes, like I wasn't expecting Dennis to be dead. There's something juicy here. There's like, shit's really going down because clearly someone's a guilty party in this where he's obviously been shot. And I just wanted to almost give a quick comment on the location. Probably one of my favourite locations in the game so far, maybe my favourite location, that being the office. Felt very realistic, the way the desks and that was sectioned off. Loved all the little details, the folders, the files, the post-it notes with like little, things scribbled on them. I really wanted to take my time in here, so when I first actually walked around that corner and saw a body and saw a cutscene, I was like, oh no, like I wanted to have a little bit more time, but thankfully you do get that a bit more time to go around and explore. But really interesting plot development, mate, and it brought about a nice little reconstruction scene again, which I enjoyed. Of course, like you had the whole angle where you had to prove that it was a gun, and then you had to look at the bullet hole, and then it was that you had to look at the gun of the assailant. And I really love, and I do it a couple of times. I've done it a couple of times in this episode. When it once you've confirmed the reconstruction, you then see how it plays out. I really like that, and you see the silhouette of like the baddie there, and you're thinking, oh, I wonder who it is. Like I'm just really wrapped up in this mystery at the moment, and I'm really getting something out of this game, mate.
Oh, that's really good to hear. I know what you mean about the office. It had a charm to it. We get another Pac-Man Easter egg as well with the post-it notes on the wall, which I quite enjoyed. But like one thing I mentioned to you a little bit before as well is that I really liked the the detective and the investigation style with finding out how to get into Walter's computer, how to get into like the archive file in Nick's cubicle. One bit I didn't enjoy was the when you initially find Dennis and there's the whole puzzle bit there with the bullet. I don't know if my PC or like my gameplay glitched or whatever, but I found it really clunky having to look at. Obviously, you found out it was a bullet. I found the bullet hole in the background. I looked at all the blood and stuff, but then it would send me back, and then I couldn't examine the items I wanted to. I don't know if it was glitched, like I said, but I just felt that a little bit weird. And then it's almost like I ran out of time, and then it did it for me, which I felt was a bit weird. But yeah, nonetheless, I did enjoy the whole thing with the silhouette. I think maybe I pieced enough together to manage to get that scene anyway. But yeah, I wasn't really done there. It kind of cut it short for me. We get a little bit of another dream section. Like in the last part, we had the running away from the Shadow Man. In this bit, we have this weird one with almost like a series of Dennis zombies, don't we? Yeah. Where in a sea of it, you have your voice of reason, the guy with the glasses again. I'm calling him the voice of reason because he doesn't have a name yet. I'm sure he will at some point. But yeah, I felt this puzzle was probably a little bit weaker. I preferred the running one. Maybe because I struggled a little bit with PC, where sometimes I would hit the wrong buttons. Sometimes the key wouldn't actually show up. So there was one round where I just had to let the Dennis zombies just overtake me because I couldn't actually pick the button to, get the guy. But nonetheless, there were a few takes though, and I got there in the end. But yeah, it was another interesting section, and I really enjoy that we get these little bit of unique gameplays where they throw these few little puzzle things at us. I don't know what you thought of that bit, mate.
Yeah, I mean, what happens then if the Dennis guy gets to you?
Oh yeah, so you just brush him away. You're like, no, and then it goes back to the start, and you've got to go from the very start again. So I think it took me 3 or 4 tries because there were times where, because I'm playing on PC, which I don't usually do. So you've got to go W, A, S, and D, and there were times where I'd hit the wrong one. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. There were times where the guy was there and I saw him, but I didn't hit him in time, and then you would have to find him again, but sometimes he never showed up again, and you just had to basically wait till you got touched by the Dennises. But nonetheless, though, you piece it together, you go back in the room, and then, you work out that you've got to go around and, sniff the clues. Or because I think, what was it? You go through his emails, and then you figure out that there's this whole thing to do with Walter and Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it that Dennis was getting close to something, so whoever killed him didn't want him, burying any further? I believe that's what happened.
It looks that way, and I do have a slight theory, but honestly, to come back to what you were saying before, I think I'll look back at your gameplay to see what you mean about, the reconstruction bit with the gun and the bullet. For me, it seemed to go quite smooth. There was nice couple of other details in there, like the shaky cam. Oh, that was really good. There was some tense music as well, while you're figuring it all out. And yeah, as for the little mini game, it certainly was easier than the running doors one. I think the running doors one, it was more the steering that I found difficult. But this one, yeah, it was just look for the guy and hit the button. But and yeah, coming back to this whole computer thing with Walter, you know that I don't trust him already, right? So yeah. When I read the email where I think he sends an email to the chief of police, that Beth Mitchell.
Yeah.
Says that he wants to check something on the the record, and it was the record that says that Nick had his seatbelt undone, and this and that. I was thinking, why was he so panicky? Because he then sends an email saying, "Oh, it was nothing in the end. Don't worry about it." I was thinking, why? Why does he want access to that sensitive document? Is it because he thinks that he might have left a little bit of evidence in the car or something? And especially where this episode goes later on, I'm sat there thinking it really could be Walter that's behind this. So my finger is firmly pointing at him at the moment. I don't know why in terms of a motive. I feel maybe because he is also closer to Nick because they're in a workspace, it'd be easier for him to monitor what he's doing, and therefore also the Dennis, because he's the IT guy. So I mean, yeah, we'll have to see. That's a little theory I'm running with so far, mate, that Walter's behind Nick's death and Dennis's death.
No, interesting, and it certainly was really interesting to see, especially when you dive through the computers and stuff. I mean, I wanted to dive through Nick's, but his computer was taken, so that itself is interesting. And yeah, with the clunkiness that I mentioned with the puzzle, so it was just the gunshot one right after the mini game, because it kind of just changed the camera angle, and then you would look at a clue and then it would go back. I almost wanted to stay on a certain camera angle and look at multiple clues because there were different ones to look at. But nonetheless, I really enjoyed the other bits though, of going around the office and digging, looking at the post-it notes, trying to find the password to get into Walter's computer. I'm not gonna lie though, for each one, the Nick's archive file and Walter's computer, I think I made it way more complicated than it needed to be. I was looking for Heart's Desire, I was looking for maybe heart things around. I found 3 clues it could be, being the mum's name, the cat's name, and then Basswood, his pride and joy, what he loves, right?
Yeah.
I picked the cat first. I was it's got to be the cat. He's got his picture of a cat. Okay, no, the mother. Basswood is the last one I picked. I complained about it in my stream, but I'm what? That's the most boring password I've ever seen, mate. It's the worst password I've ever seen. And then again with the archive file, there's a post-it note that had a time on it. I'm like, oh, that would have been a really good password. But now it's all to do with like, you know, the notebook around the side, which Joan did some digging with. So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, that is cool, but I think my one would have been cooler. I felt like sometimes I go into puzzles too much of an escape room brain, and I overthink things way too much. I don't know if you found all the passwords with relative like ease.
Yeah, no, honestly, the exact same. So I don't think I actually found the mother's name one. Although I did remember reading a document with his mother in it. This is Walter, by the way, saying that she's gone to Costa Rica. She's just had some sort of medical exam, and that Walter needs to have a medical exam, which, again, I sort of like kept in the back of my mind. It's a potential thread that could come back later on, but yeah, I picked the cat first because that was the picture. I'm pretty sure I only had Basswood after that, so I picked that and thought, yeah, it was a bit of a weird.
Yeah.
As for the archives, exact same. I was thinking 2341.
Yeah.
Actually, because it come up saying 1, 2, 3, 4 on the screen, and then I was like, oh, it's got to be all of the numbers that need using. But it was obviously it was the other one, wasn't it? The 3, 2, 1, 2 or something like that. But yeah, it did. I was stumbled a little while by them.
We look at the clues, and obviously, yeah, like you mentioned, Walter was digging into, like, you know, with the police to find out, you know, about the car, and it almost seems like whether there was a cover-up, but it seems that, like, Nick supposedly was drunk, and that was the cause of the accident. And then if you look through Nick's files, you'll find that he did some serious digging into something. So he did a lot of traveling, he did a lot of almost interviewing, or, you know, a lot of digging to find something. So yeah, really interesting finds there. And obviously, we get spotted by Anna, right? Anna, who walks back in. Now, I imagine this might be really interesting for the pair of us, because obviously I confided in her. You hid things from her, so it'll be really interesting to see what your dialogue was here. And it might have favoured me more here, actually, because obviously I did already own her about the bloody shirt. She says to me, like, okay, well, this explains what your bloody shirt is. We need to call the police. And then you get another choice, which I imagine you would have had the same. Yeah. So was your same... Did you have the same choice, and was your path the same to get there? I imagine she was probably in a lot more shock than I probably had her.
Yeah, so obviously she like pops out randomly behind you, doesn't she? And because you're stood over the body, she's like, oh my god, and she starts to like walk out. And then the first thing you get a bit of dialogue, and the first thing I said is that I didn't kill Dennis. And she's like, well, obviously, like, I believe you, this and that. And then, yeah, to cut a long story short, the choice comes up. And I thought at this point, because I know the alter ego guy pops up and he's like, you know, you could be like efficient but friendless. And I was thinking, this is the point, now that she's seen me stood over a dead body, I need her on side. You know, I can't have her wandering off, you know, thinking, you know, something incorrect. So I just said, yeah, let's call the cops. It's funny, after saying that, he then goes, oh yeah, I'll, you know, make sure it's from a burner phone, which I was like, yeah, even better. Like, you know, that's pretty darn smart. So yeah, I'm guessing you could say she's back on side.
Yeah, I did the same. I thought I'd call the cops. I just basically picked the thing I would do in real life. I can't remember, the other option was just to leave right away, but I don't know, it would have been suspicious, especially as Anna put it, you were all day walking around town asking where Dennis was. You had a bar fight, it just would have looked awful. So yeah, I think it was the smart thing to do. But then obviously it leads you to go to this crash site, right, where we'll have our final section of this analysis chapter, as far as Jack and I have played so far. So Jack, talk us through. We're there with Anna. We get our favourite section again, a bit like we had with the bar before, right?
Yeah.
Did you find this bit relatively easy? Were there any challenges? Did you call it exactly as it was? What did you make of the mystery?
I did find it pretty easy, actually. So first thing, as soon as I got out of the car, like I usually do in these games, I always go behind me. So I walked straight up the hill and I saw the fuel all over the road, and there was like a road sign as well. It did take me a little while to find some of the clues. You almost have to go with like a bit of a fine tooth comb, because there was like a tree log on one side of the road. There was like bits of broken wood which are easy to pick up, and then you can go down the hill and like find where the truck and the burned tree was. But a bit of dialogue that got it for me was when he said there's no skid marks. So as soon as I heard that, I thought, right, so he clearly wasn't conscious, and obviously because of the fuel, I was thinking, could that be like someone cutting the fuel, or is that cutting the brake fluid? Immediately I thought he was unconscious, and then obviously you know that the car's on fire and that the signs are on fire. So when I got to the top and you ultimately did the reconstruction, straight away I picked that it was on fire. I was thinking someone's knocked him out, they've torched it, they've pushed it down the road, hence no skid marks, and hence why, you know, the tree and the signs were on fire. It did throw sort of something in there about an obstacle, and I was thinking to myself, well, I didn't see, I think it was a fox, wasn't it? I didn't see like a dead fox lurking.
Yeah.
And the tree log, like it wasn't, you know, it was quite out of the way on the side of the road. So I was thinking, no, I think someone's just pushed the car down the hill, it's gone in a straight line, and then it's like ended up at the tree. So I did actually get through this bit relatively easily, mate. How about you?
Yeah, and one thing that was pretty fun for myself is that I had Casey, our good friend, who, you know, always comments and, you know, helps our channel out, in the chat, and it was cool because I did it via stream, and I actually kind of got to work it out with an audience where we chipped in together, which was interesting, you know. But yeah, I think we did it with relative ease as well, and I actually think I preferred this one to the bar one, because the bar, to me, I wouldn't say the choice seemed clunky, but because there was like a clue on the left, the middle, and the right, it could have gone either way. This one felt a lot more logical to work out. But yeah, like you say, interesting. We were like, well, he's not drunk, right? Which was the default one, because like, as you can tell, the driving's all erratic. And another big thing as well, like you mentioned, yeah, the skid marks, but also the fact that only 2 signposts were knocked off, right? Me just being the master of detail, where I just want to look at everything, I made him drunk at the start and just saw all the reactions to him hitting the log and the fox or whatever, and they all skidding in random directions. He wipes out about 5 of the signposts, not 2. So you swiftly like clock on, don't you? Like, okay, well, he wasn't drunk. I wanted to look at what happened if he was just completely normal. And what's interesting as well, I don't know if you saw this, but if you put the fox, the log, all nothing, he just drives, he avoids everything, normal. If there's a fox, he'll slow down, let the fox go by, and then he drives on. And you're like, okay, so he wasn't completely normal or sober. So yeah, you go for unconscious. And yeah, like, I was pretty adamant that there was no obstacle whatsoever. And yeah, obviously, admittedly at the start, I was pretty adamant that, oh yeah, fuel at the top, his fuel thing was cut. But then the guy was like, well, it doesn't explain why the tree and the car set on fire so quick. So then we were like, yeah, okay, someone has burnt this car. And me and Casey found out pretty swiftly. But yeah, so I was putting my theories together, and I think I've clocked on who it is. So like, you're pretty adamant it could be Walter, right? In the last video, I was pretty hard set on Hugh, and I'm sticking with that theory. And I have a few things I reckon it, you know, why it could be Hugh. Obviously, I think they're doing the same thing, Don't Nod, with the whole Mr. Jefferson, where they give us 3 options and you can pick one of them. But then, you know, the nicer one, it like, you're thinking, oh, it's not that now. But then later on, you know, it is the one, and it's kind of taunting you early doors. I thought maybe they could be doing that. But there's an interaction you have with him in the pharmacy. I don't know if you had that, but you're talking about your fight, and then you're talking about your hangover. And then I think he talks to you about like having, you know, like the right medicine for it. And he says something along the lines of, oh, it's all to do with the correct dosage. And I'm thinking, if this guy's a pharmacist and he can affect people's dosage, could it be that Nick was on meds and this Hugh guy fucked his dosage up, overdosed him, and caused him to be unconscious behind the wheel? It might be that there's two people doing the job, but I have a feeling here that Hugh could have overdosed Nick, whether it was to get, like Kathy or something along those lines. But yeah, I'm really heartset that I think Hugh could be a bit of a sussy chungus here. I don't know if like you're looking at my theory and there could be some logic to that. I just think being the pharmacist and having our victim unconscious, I'm just putting two and two together here.
It certainly makes a lot of sense. I mean, again, if you like you say, we've already drawn so many parallels between this game and Life is Strange already. Whether it's the best friend coming back to our hometown, and the parallels and things. But I mean, it's got merit to it. I mean, it could be one of those things as well where like they're throwing like purposely like these little red herring breadcrumbs in there. And it's going to be something else completely that takes us both by surprise. I really don't know, but it's these little things that are keeping me interested. I mean, because your theory is perfectly valid. I feel like mine's got some sort of legs to it, but I feel like mine's maybe a little bit more on a hunch. I don't know, but nonetheless, you know what? Before I go any further, there's one thing I wanted to add about this scene that I really like. And actually, you could add it in the bar scene as well. But when like you've got the car coming down the road.
Yeah.
You can see, I think if you stand in front of it, it sort of like breaks up into crystals. Sort of thing,
yeah.
As it goes through you. I just think from a visual and style point of view, I absolutely adore that. Like I'm really reveling in the whole Mind Palace thing, just from like an aesthetic level. But the fact that how it weaves in with the reconstruction thing, yeah. Just, honestly, like, I'm really getting enjoyment from this game. Like it's exceeding my expectations for definite.
No, I completely agree. And I noticed that in the bar room as well. Like, you would let the silhouettes walk through you, and then the crystals would break up and go around you. And, like, yeah, it just looks really visually stunning. And, like, you had it as well with the car rolling down the hill. You could just walk straight through it. The whole thing looked amazing. But, yeah, I think the car scene topped the bar one, to be honest. Like, it really strong way to end the episode. Really chuffed as well, and I felt really rewarded that I got it pretty swiftly. So, we did that. And then... we've got our conclusions, and to be honest, mate, I reckon there's a high chance it could be a double job as well. I think, like, maybe my guy could be the puppet master, like, with the dosage, and maybe your guy could be the grunt who, burnt the car, like, because it could be that Hugh wasn't the one who, like, doused it in flames, but a really savage way to go out, so it makes me even more, like, keen to, get justice served and, reveal who this person is. But I'm getting really sold by the story as well, mate. Really good pick, as this was your idea to play this game. I guess we get a call from Joe to end the episode, and it turns out Anna's house has been broken into. I don't know what we're gonna find there, but that's certainly, my eyebrows are raised for that one. So yeah, I'm ready to get stuck in, to be honest, mate. Anything to mention before we conclude the episode?
Not too much, apart from obviously it's a really good cliffhanger. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I'm pretty sure that this game was originally intended to be released episodically. And I mean, obviously, I know it doesn't really make a difference for us because we're choosing an arbitrary point to stop and stuff. But like, even just in the 2 parts we've played, there's definitely been some nice cutting off points, and I think that this one would have probably made a really good cliffhanger. The end of an episode. We've seen the car crash, we've established what's happened, that there is a killer, and now the ex-girlfriend, her house has been broken into. Obviously I like the fact that you can just play it all the way through, but I think that this game could equally work just as well if it was done in episodes too.
I don't know if it's us, but it feels like we've accidentally picked really good moments where we've done it right after the crime scenes, and it almost is like if it was episodic, this is where it would end.
Yeah, because it's weird, we've almost just based it off the first one, haven't we? I mean, I know when I sat down to play it, part 2, I said, right, it's going to be roughly about an hour and a half. And it really was. After the whole office scene, I think I still had maybe like 10 or 15 minutes left, and I was like, I can't really leave it here. I'm gonna have to like maybe try and play one more. And I think that crash one was just about right. You know, I think that was perhaps the right place to end it. So
Yeah, of course. But yeah, brilliant. Well, we'll just get stuck in for the next part, guys. You know what our conclusions are. Hopefully, you know, we're on to something. But either way, I love a good mystery. I love being proven wrong in these things. So it'll be nice, you know. I just hope it's a really hitting, you know, conclusion. It makes sense. But either way, I'm having a lot of fun with it. And yeah, like, join us next week for part 3, where, yeah, we unravel the mystery further. Thank you very much for joining, guys.
see you next time.